Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, Karl Bryan coming at you. Thanks for tuning in to Business Coaching Secrets. I've created this show to help business coaches build predictable revenue streams and businesses that they've always dreamed of. I've been the business coach riding that inevitable roller coaster of wondering where my next client's going to come from and struggling with, sometimes taking those coaches or clients on and having them canceling. One day I realized if you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. So Business Coaching Secrets will bring you the strategies, tactics, and in many cases, experts required for you to realize your dream. And today I have got my counterpart, Road Dog, with me. Road Dog, are you there, bud?
I'm here, bud. How are you?
I'm doing fabulously. I think we got a few questions that were fired in, and tell you what, man, let's get this show on the road and hit me with what we're looking for or looking at today.
Sure. So one of the questions that I get quite a bit is always when a new coach comes in, the question of who should I coach? And are there any specific businesses that are like better than others to go after right away? How would you answer that?
Yeah. Okay. So two things, like for every individual coach, it will and should be a little bit different. Two things that I would look at is passion and expertise. Okay. So if you're super passionate about something, like as an example, business coaching is what I do, right? So as a very successful business coach, love business coaching. If I have 15 minutes on my own in my office, you'll find me on Business Insider, on Seth Godin's blog. I'm reading about business and marketing. It's just something that I love, so I do it really, organically, and I just enjoy it, right? So again, on my spare time without getting paid, this is, what I'm fumbling through as I look at my my bookcase here. I've got hundreds of books, and 90% of them would be about business. So if you've got a topic that you're super passionate about, like let's say, for instance, cars, well, go find a niche or go find clients in and around the motive industry, right? If you're really passionate about real estate and that's something that really juices you, go into, coach realtors, coach mortgage brokers, coach, folks in the real estate space. So passion, and then it's that old formidable, a little bit of a cliche, but you'll never work a day in your life again. It's just, you'll be so much more fun, so you'll therefore be so much better at it long term. And once again, like anything, you've got to learn though at the front end, right? So, and then the other thing that I would say is expertise. So if you've got, again, I was a very successful business coach. I built a $5.5 million coaching company, used to do $400,000 a month. It just makes sense that, the reality is that I've just forgotten more about generating leads for business coaches than most others are ever going to know. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. I mean, it's just, I've been doing this for a long, long time, a decade and a half, well and truly, full time. So therefore you'd hope that I'd be good at it by now, right? So expertise, like you might have been a dentist, you might have been a chiropractor, you might have a brother-in-law, you might have a wife, you might know somebody who's a really successful chiropractor. Well, that will give you, the ability to get into the inside. So your expertise and your passion, I would try probably go towards those. Like say, like if you're a realtor, like if I coached a realtor, which I've done this successfully a number of times, what I would help them. So first of all, I just tell you, if you have a realtor that's worth their salt, they are normally disorganized as heck. Okay. So the first thing that I do is I help them with their follow through. Okay. Almost always I will double the income of that realtor over the next 12 months if I help them manage the clients that call them. They're just dropping balls left, right, and center. It's again, this is a salesperson. A really good salesperson is disorganized 90% of the time. A realtor who's successful is a good salesperson, so they're going to fall into that category. Same with a mortgage broker, by the way. The other thing that I would do with a realtor is that if you want to know the secret sauce, realtors, the magic pill for a realtor are referrals. Okay, so what they do is they should have a party for the person who sells. Okay, because everybody moves out of their house and goes, damn, we should have had a party before we left with all of our neighbors. We're going to miss them. And then you have a party for the folks that move in. Okay, and because then when they move in, guess what? They're like, I would love to get to know all the neighbors. And by the way, the neighbors want to get to know them as well. Well, they always wait too long, and all of a sudden they've been in the house 90 days, and they go, damn, we should have had a party to welcome ourselves to the neighborhood and have everybody come over so we could meet our neighbors, our kids could meet their kids, etc. Well, so the realtor, you facilitate it. It's a lot of work, but I got to tell you, just through doing that, this is how you dominate a community, and you will get more referrals through that strategy, basically, than anything else. Another thing with the realtor, it's about being intelligent, like which houses are you going to list and which houses are you going to help people buy. Here's a secret sauce. If you walk into a house, first thing that I do is I would put on my spidey senses and I'm looking for an extra bathroom and an extra room. Okay, if you do that, depending upon where you live and the price of the house, but you will struggle. You will spend $10,000 to $15,000 doing that on the outside, and you will add $50,000 to $100,000 plus to the price of the house. Okay, and by the way, for the house, the people moving in, it's like, well, the house is X amount of bathrooms, X amount of bedrooms. If you can add, like you just, as you're selling it to them, you say, see this house, you could buy it tomorrow, and this is where the room could go, this is where the bathroom could go. Just wait 30 days before moving in. I've got some contractors in my back pocket, I'll help them do it. They will buy the house for a discount. And by the way, they can now go to the bank after they do this and refinance it, and now all of a sudden the house is going to be worth more. So therefore, the $10,000, $20,000, 10 to 20% deposit they put down, they can sometimes get that back out. Okay, so what am I getting at there? That's an example of expertise. Like, I don't need to meet the realtor to know that I can help them. End of story. And that stuff another thing I do is I turn them into a corporation, right? Like half of them are just operating personally. You put your hand over your eyes and just go, are you frigging crazy? The number one expense in your life, my life, Road Dog's life, everybody listening to this life. If you put me in a room with 100 people and I say, I'd like to know, what do you think the number one expense is in your lifetime? Okay, and then I'll help them. Right? I'll say, so mortgage and housing. Well, 80% of the audience thinks that their number one expense is their mortgage and housing. Right? Well, guess what? It's taxes. Time. It's not by a little. It's not by a lot. It's times like 100. Okay, taxes is the number one expense in your life by 100 miles. And then the average family will go and start an MLM, and mom will sell lingerie out of the kitchen, okay, in order to make a few extra bucks, instead of sitting down with an accountant, going through their taxes and saying, how could we get $10, $20, $30,000 of this back? Okay, and if every family give them this advice. And in the case of the realtor, they turn themselves into a corporation. The tax, because again, any accountant will, and I'm not an accountant, I'm not giving tax advice, et cetera, okay? But sit down with an accountant and they'll tell you, like, what you do is you get paid in dividends, and then you're going to pay significantly less tax immediately, without doing anything else. Remember, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. A realtor, because they're a salesperson, that disorganized guy, 80% of them are not they're not a corporation they need to be. And by the way, all of you should be as well. Again, you've got to find ways, guys. Tax is the number one expense in your lifetime. You got to be really, really clever. One last strategy around that. If you go to McDonald's, they have an employee of the month. Okay, everybody raise their hand, right? You agree with me? Everybody just raise their hand. Great. You can have an employee of the month too, right? So what is the employee of the month? You could get a toaster. You just wrote it off. You could buy a fridge, depending upon your revenues, a fridge might fall into that. If it's like a $3,000 fridge, this might be a little bit of a stretch. Your accountant might get nervous, but you'll be able to do it. So, but you have to be strategic. You can't buy 12 things at the end of the year. You buy one a month, okay? So you're strategic about it throughout the year. And this is why you have to work with your accountant through the year instead of going to your accountant 3 months after the year is over. Right? Just total, this crazy mistake that the average, but remember, 90% of the population is flat broke, living month to month. these are the reasons why. They're not strategic. They're either listening to this, hearing it, and then not acting, or most certainly the government, the banks, frankly, the accountants aren't giving you this advice. Why? I can't tell you, but please, be a force for good, folks. Take this if you agree. And I am not an accountant. I'm not providing tax or accounting advice here, right? So you sit down with your accountant, you work out if employee of the month can work for you, but I can tell you it will. You might have to answer a question if you get audited, but I'm going to tell you, anyways, you should be doing that. So these are examples of how, like, when I work, I don't need to meet the realtor to think, can I help them? Okay. So you guys have to go to the books. You've got to watch, listen to podcasts like this. You got to get the learning so that you can know and then genuinely help them. And you would imagine if what I just said all works, and it does, can you imagine how hard I can close the realtor? Because I know if he signs up with me at $2,000 a month, who's doing who the favor, right? That's the big one. So passion and expertise, Road Dog, would be my answers there, brother.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what was the number one type of business that you enjoyed working with the most?
Yep. Okay. Mobile. I mean, hard to just nail one, right? Because really, the person. I think everybody will agree. If you're a real coach, you just like to help people. So I found the personalities were more enjoyable than anything else. But
Yeah.
my background, mobile service-based company. So my background's licensing, franchising, and those I've written intellectual property. In fact, I'm writing some literally when I hang up here, I'm going to go straight to my computer and start tooting around with the new mobile service-based bit of intellectual property to help one of those clients get going or one of those businesses get going. So mobile service-based. Think landscaper, mobile service-based. Think carpet cleaner, mobile service-based. Think mobile dog groomer, mobile service-based. So those are the guys, and a consultant, a coach, mobile service-based. So those were the ones that I like to work with. And I was obviously very, like, the lead generation was something that came very instinctively. It was really easy for me. So one of the things that I would do is if I couldn't, like, there was a stage where if I didn't feel like I could learn something from you, I wouldn't take you on as a client, right? An idea like, let's say, for instance, I mentioned doing a direct mail campaign from one side of the city to the other, for your landscaping gig, or one side, the suburb, let's say, right, to the other. You're willing to do that. Well, I knew that I could learn something because as we played with the direct mail piece, and we played with the headline, and we played with the call to action, and then the database that we sent it out to affluent homes, lower income homes and communities, etc. Like, as an example, like if you're a carpet cleaner, don't do a direct mail piece to an apartment complex where most of the places are rented. Why? Because these people, they renting the house, they are not going to pay for carpet cleaning, right? Example. So, and by the way, and then today, opening up a carpet cleaning business, if you walk into the average house, you're going to find that it's hardwood floors. So guess what? ChemDry are in a little bit of trouble right now because houses don't have carpet for the most part anymore. And why? Because they're absolutely disgusting, right? When you go and look into a carpet, it's horrific. So anyway, so most people are going to tile, hardwood floors, etc. So that comes back to learning and just thinking forward. Before you just go and spray a shotgun approach to your lead gen, be strategic with who it is you're taking on.
Gotcha. You mentioned something there earlier as well about franchising. So real quick, because that's also a very popular one now, switching gears from the coach to the client, that I know that I get quite a bit as well. And it's just, everybody seems to be interested, and it's like, hey, I'm ready to franchise. So how you've got extensive experience with this. How do you know when a company isn't all actual fact ready to it? And are there any pitfalls that I need to be aware of as well to help them?
Okay. It would be handy if I knew the type of business and somebody asked that question. The type of business and the location would go along, would be an important, because different locations have different laws and, guidelines, rules and regs, which you have to be cognizant of, because you get your client in a whole lot of trouble. Believe me, many people have franchised and lost their backside because they didn't do it right? Like what is the reason that the client is going to franchise? A lot of the time, they want to raise money, right? And I'd be very cautious here because your client's just trying to make a bunch of money. This is not a reason to franchise by any stretch of the imagination. This is possibly a one-way road to disaster, right? Got to be very, very careful with those first few people you bring on as well. You have to have a home run at the beginning. Otherwise, again, you're probably not going to survive. The types of businesses that will franchise the best are basically low skill. Okay, like there'll never be a successful chiropractic franchise. There'll never be a dental, like a dentist practice successful franchise. They could franchise and they could do like quote unquote okay, but to become a McDonald's, Subway, anything even close to on par with that will never happen. Then the question is, well, why? Because there's 4 to 7 to 8 years of schooling in the way of me starting. Like if I want to become a dentist, I got to go to school for 8 years, right? If I want to become an accountant, I got to go to school for 4 years. If I want to become a chiropractor, I got to school for X amount, 5, 6 years, whatever it is. Okay, well, that will never franchise. Versus a carpet cleaning company is like ChemDry is one of the number one franchises sold over many, many years. McDonald's and Subway goes without saying, right? You just got to hire a 16-year-old to stand back there and flip the burgers or make the subs, right? Nice and easy. So it must be low-end skill, number one. The secret sauce that people don't really talk about, and I can tell you this again, I encourage you to write this one down, commit it to memory, put it in your notes in your phone. But the trick is that you get people started. Okay, so an example, like Mr. Lube. I live in Canada. Mr. Lube is a huge franchise from one side of the country to the other. I don't know if it's in the U.S. It probably is, or other countries. I can tell you in Canada, it's everywhere. Okay, so Mr. Lube, probably pretty obvious. You go in there, you get your oil changed, right? Well, what's not going to happen today is a guy who owns a lube shop is not going to wake up and say, I know what I need to do. Damn, the secret sauce. I've got to go spend $200,000 and put Mr. Lube up the front. Like, that's what I got to do. I'm sure that's happened once or twice. I would argue, debatable, but it's definitely not going to happen consistently. But what is going to happen consistently is a guy's got a job that he hates in corporate Canada, corporate America, around the world, and he's riding the subway, riding the train, driving in traffic, paying for parking, working in a cubicle, listening to his boss that he can't stand, what the hell out of there. We help this guy. We say, look, we've got a franchise system. It works. Here are all the other franchisees. Would you like to get started with a lube shop? We can train you. We can help you develop it. We can help you recruit the right staff, et cetera, because we've got a system. Well, the guy gets the payout from the company for $300,000, and he takes it and he invests it in the Mr. Lube shop. Okay, so franchising is about getting people started. You don't go and teach, like franchise isn't not all of a sudden an advanced technique, like my Mr. Lube example of the guy who already owns the lube shop. Okay, and also, and a little bit unrelated, but I think it's related. This is when your clients thinking about expanding, because they could just do it privately. They don't need to franchise or license, right? They could just expand. But as a rule, like I've seen companies that will go and like they open up and they're in New York, and then their second location is in LA, right? And like, depend on this can work, right? Those are two great markets to operate if you're in the U.S., right? No question. But as a rule, like if I owned a Subway, many, many years ago, I looked at starting a chain of Subways in Australia, right? Looked at it pretty seriously. But anyway, so one of the things that on my must list, maybe you should have a must and a hope list. The must list is I'll start with one, but I wanted to know that I was going to be able to buy 2 others in the area. In other words, I wanted to either know that those locations were still available and I wanted first right of refusal on them. Idea being, I didn't want to own one Subway. I wanted to own 3, but they had to be close together so that I could have one lot of staff, one lot of inventory. I could, pick up the cheese from one and drive it to the other without a huge headache and, like a half hour, 45, 1 hour ride in the car. So that's really important. You want to have them close together. So anyway, when your client's looking at expanding, to expand into another state and another city and another country for that matter, sometimes this is not the best idea, keeping things nice and tight. So as a rule with franchising, the types of businesses that you'll find that lend themselves to it, this is what you want to do. If you otherwise, you own one Subway, right? You basically own a job. You're never, ever going to make enough money with one Subway to really make any money, right? Let's put it that way. So anyway, so that's a little bit important. Another question I get all the time, the difference between licensing and franchising. This is a conversation this is a long conversation that one of these days, no doubt, I'll get into, but I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. A franchise, think about a franchise is a business that's duplicated, and then a license is a process that's duplicated, okay? And as a rule, most people just think that carrying the name, like because you open up a sandwich shop and then you put Subway out the front, like the carrying of the name is what the difference between franchising and licensing is. And that is not the case. There's a lot more to it than that. But here's the X factor. It depends on what country you're in and what state that you're in, or if you're in Canada, what province you're in. Because which sounds crazy, but there's different rules and different compliance required in different areas. Like if you're in the U.S. and you're in Virginia, significantly different lot of rules than in Idaho. Okay, so anyway, so licensing, franchising, but think of licensing as a process, and then think about franchising as an entire business that's been duplicated. So that's what I'd say. So Road Dog, I think for the most part, what I'm getting at there, your client wants to franchise. It needs to be low-end skill. Okay. Otherwise, again, and by the way, they can franchise. A dental practice can franchise, to be clear. Okay. But they're just not going to have grand scale success by any stretch of the imagination. And it's debatable as to, how well that it's going to go. So somebody says, hey, Carl, I want to franchise my business. This is one of the things that I'm thinking.
Gotcha. Well, it's funny how often that comes up too, right? Like it's just, entrepreneurs being entrepreneurs and obviously wanting to blow things up as quickly as possible. It just sort of makes sense. Now, speaking of blowing things up and sort of laying big claims, so us as business coaches, sometimes we put out some pretty big claims, like obviously how we can find 100,000 in 45 minutes, right? It sounds over the top. So how do you back that up, and then where is that line for you in terms of hype versus reality?
Yeah, what you mean by that is that sometimes I'll put a claim in front of the business owner, and it sounds so grandiose that they feel like they spot a charlatan and they run for the hills. That's kind of
you're saying 100,000 in 45 minutes. The average person would sit there and go, Psh, you're out of this. You're out of touch. That sounds ridiculous.
Okay. All right. So everybody listening. So if you're a business coach and you work with us, what we do is we provide you a process where you can find any business owner $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending a dollar on marketing or advertising. Right. So we literally built profit. In fact, I'm working on 2.0 version right now. But we built profit acceleration software to basically back all of this up and to make it a formalized process. So number one, what we do up front is actually, in most cases, what we do is we guarantee to find you $10,000 in 45 minutes without spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. And then when you show up, you find 100,000. And effectively what you've done is you've over-delivered at the highest level in your first engagement. So you could imagine that once you've done this, believe me, as you've experienced, if you've used it, nobody wants to leave that meeting without jumping on board. You know what I mean? All you have to do is say it the other. Do you want a little bit of help with this? You need to frame up a little bit of curiosity and whatnot throughout, but it's pretty reasonably straightforward. So therefore, where's that line? The size of the company. In a perfect world, I would have a bit of an idea as to what size of a business that you have, because the same way that you say, Road Dog, that $100,000 sounds like an unbelievable claim. Well, if you did $3 million last year, $100,000 arguably isn't enough, right? I think, that, and if they're familiar with, like the concepts that we're talking about, again, they could see how for sure we'd be able to find this lot of number, but it's about the execution. So understanding that, but here it is. It's like I was talking about earlier. You got to go to work. You need to learn the system. you've got to, it's like what I talked about with the realtor. You've got to do some homework prior. You really have to respect your clients, respect your prospect, respect your audience. If you're in a situation where you've got, 10, 50, 100 people in front of you, right? And you legitimately have to be able to do this stuff. Like, if I were to give an example, like you say, okay, well, geez, how the heck would you find somebody $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising? That sounds pretty impressive, right? And you could imagine I could deliver that to Richard Branson. I could deliver that to Tony Robbins. And I have little doubt, I've never done that, but I almost guarantee they'd say, oh, wow, how do you do that? Right? Well, curiosity, right? That's my whole, whenever I'm trying to pitch something, whenever I'm trying to sell something, curiosity plays a huge role. When I write a headline, the whole thing that I'm looking for is I want them to read it and experience curiosity, the way that Tony Robbins would say, how do you do that if I delivered that elevator pitch, right? So then it's like, okay, well then back it up, Carl. How would you do that? So I'll give you an example. So if you had a business that made $100,000 last year and they have 20% margins, and by the way, if I ask them their margins, on average, they're going to tell me about 50, in some cases, above like 60, 75% margins. They just out to lunch. Okay, they have nowhere near margins like that, or I highly doubt it. There's unicorns and anomalies, but for the most part, they're going to be a whole heap closer to 20% than they are 50%. But anywho, so they made $100,000 last year and they got 20% margins. The first thing that I would do is go to their expenses, right? Most marketing guys and business coaches and business consultants and people that play in our space, they go straight to the gas pedal. They go straight to Facebook advertising and straight to lead generation and Russell Brunson, we're going to build a funnel, blah, 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 blah. They go straight to sales. Well, a significantly smarter place to go is expenses. And I can tell you that I don't need to sit down with your client with about a 90% probability they have not looked at their expenses for, a significant amount of time. I mean, in some cases, it can be, a couple, 3 years even. And in most cases, like the last 12 months, they've looked at their expenses, but they have not critiqued their expenses. Like they're still paying for the magazine subscription and they've moved twice since. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, holy smokes, how could you make this error? I'm telling you, it's happening all the time. But anywho, so what we're going to do is go through their expenses. And when I say expenses, they're credit card statements. If it's a smaller business, you do this both personally and for their business. But if you do that, the mission, and what I'm going to do, I don't do what I get paid for. I don't do what the agreement outlines. I do what it takes. Okay, that's what's important, especially in the first 90 days of your coaching relationship. You're really solidifying this guy or gal for the next number of years, right? So for the first 90 days, go above and beyond, and believe me, you'll be rewarded long-term for it. So what I do, though, is I go through their credit card statements line by line. And before we do this, I give them a black marker so there's anything weird or anything they want me to see or whatever. They just put a black line through it so nobody has to see it. And I don't want to see it. They don't want me to see it. Okay, good. We go through, and basically what I'm going to do is whatever it takes to get their margins from 20 to 30%. Okay, and believe me, it's not going to be more exciting than going through their credit card statements with a ridiculous predictability, but you might need to raise their prices by 5%. You might need to go back to some of their suppliers and renegotiate, which they've never taken the time to renegotiate with their suppliers. People are doing this all the time, right? But anywho, so I'm going to get their margins from 20 to 30%, right? My grade 8 math says to me, well, that's just a 10% improvement, right? We go from 20 to 30 on the surface, that's 10. But in actuality, and then by the way, 10% on $100,000 would be how much? That's $10,000, right? So if I charge, say, $1,000 a month, I'm $12,000 for 12 months. I've almost paid my way. I'm high-fiving these guys going, holy smokes, we're almost there. And if I charge $24,000, which is $2,000 a month, we're a little bit under halfway there. Geez, we're only 30 days into the relationship. We could probably still high-five, right? Well, that's not what happened. When you go from 20 to 30, this is a 50% increase, not 10, right? Because 10 would be 20 to 22. 20 would be 20 to 24, 30 would be 20 to 26, etc. So it's a 50% increase. If they made $100,000, okay, and this is not some, this isn't Amazon, this isn't eBay, right? This isn't Uber, this is a hair salon, right? Made $100,000 last year. How much did you make them? If it's a 50% improvement, and I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be, because you're going to take them from about 20 to 30. It's very easy. You just go through their expenses. That's a $50,000 return. If you charge $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. You are not 30 days into the relationship, and boom, you've over doubled the return on your entire 12 months. And if you want to know some more secret sauce that I provide, or like when I work with my client, what I would do before, you could see how if you do that, you should probably be rewarded at a slightly higher level than just an extra, that 1 month of coaching. So what I say to my client is, look, let me just give you the secret sauce here. What I do is I have my process, and we'll go through X over the first 3 months, and then X over the following 3 months, and then we depending upon where we are, we're doing X, Y, Z, right? Well, let me make you an agreement. Road Dog, you're my client. I'll say, Road Dog, I'll make a deal with you, bud. If I can cover the cost, and I can prove it, if I can cover the cost of 12 months of my coaching within, give yourself a little bit of time, but you should be easily done in 30 days, but give it 45 days. If Road Dog, if I can cover the fees for within 45 days, can I have a gentleman's agreement? We don't need a blood sample or a passport or any flashy paperwork. Will you give me a gentleman's agreement that under no circumstances, because let me explain, Road Dog, the biggest challenge that I have with my successful clients is that all my stuff works. They get really busy. The coaching calls become more and more challenging to show up to because you're so damn busy, and I end up losing you as a client as a result of being stupidly good at what I do, because trust me, I am. So can we make this gentleman's agreement? In the first 45 days of working with you, if I can more than cover my expenses for the entire 12 months, will you give me a guarantee that you will not, under any circumstances, no matter how busy you get, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many locations you open up, that you will not cancel my $2,000 a month agreement within 12 months under any circumstances, and no matter how many coaching calls you miss? You give me that word. What do you think you're going to say, Rodo? You agree to this, correct?
Of course. Well, worst case scenario, I'm out 2 payments.
Sorry, say that again?
Worst case scenario, what am I paying? You're making this guarantee that you're going to cover it, right? Like, and I'm sitting there going, well, hang on, I'm only going to make you pay twice, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? But at the end of the day, you're that confident? Absolutely, sign me up.
Yep. So this is it. So now, and you guys know this, if you're a successful coach, you know that down the line, the reality is that just your clients get busy. Right? Familiarity breeds contempt, right? They have all this magic and they've been taught so much and they're now applying it. They are so darn busy. They're like, I need to take a little bit of a break from the coaching because things are accelerated. This can be a challenge. So anywho, without going through that, I know that there's other dynamics of a coaching relationship, most certainly, but the bottom line is I want to pre-frame that early. I do it. I deliver. Remember, I don't do what's agreed on the paperwork. I do what it takes. And this is what tends to happen. So anyway, so that's something that you really need to make sure that you deliver at the highest level, and the way you do that is you got to get into the books, you got to get into the examples, you got to get into the videos, you got to read, listen, and watch business development stuff, and not just the Tony Robbins. And you guys know, like, I love Tony Robbins, right? I named my daughter Sage after Tony Robbins' wife. The reality, though, is most of the stuff that you're going to get from Tony Robbins is motivational and moving yourself out of your own way and that sort of thing. That's great. But I'm talking real tactical advice, like I gave you with the realtor earlier, with the taxes, real tactical and strategic advice to help your client go to the next level, not just move them out of the way. Remember, you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker, right? This is not about motivation a lot of the time. It is about providing them the real life tactical steps required to go and make some damn money. Once they make the money, they can get a little bit more strategic and a little bit more, planning, the better life and just that state and the motivation and whatnot. So there's a balance of both, but I just want to make sure if you're going to make a lofty claim up front, you got to be able to deliver it. And delivering it just from a mindset perspective is not what I would encourage. I would encourage that for sure, because that's the biggest thing. The psychology of the owner is the number one thing that holds them back. but the tactical steps to go make some more money is what I think is really missing from it. And I do understand. So then I know I'm also got, some real traditional coaches on the line there. But yeah, Karl, but coaching isn't about that, right? It's about moving people out of their own way, and they already know what they need to know. You just need to pull it out of them. And the reality is, in this day and age, with the number of just, you turn on Facebook and you open up your phone, and the number of ads and the number of distractions and the number of videos, and then not to mention just real life stuff that gets in these people's way, it's an all-consuming thing. So you've got to be there to be able to protect these folks, and you have an obligation to do so with your coaching clients, in my opinion. So that's how I'd answer that, my man.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned we're going to get these guys busy. You want to make sure they're on for 12 months. They're probably feeling stressed. They're probably feeling overwhelmed. But not just from that, because obviously we see it a lot inside of our organization here with LPW, of just people feeling overwhelmed with just the amount of stuff coming at them. So do you have any sort of tips on managing overwhelm? Do you have anything that you could share with us?
Yeah, well, I would say that the average business owner, including, like, if you're a business coach, you're probably overwhelmed. If you're a dentist, you're overwhelmed. A lot of the stuff that I just mentioned a minute ago, just between opening up the phone and just the number of ads and everything coming at them. Overwhelm is just, if you're a successful business owner, in fact, if you're a business owner, period, and not experiencing overwhelm, like there's something unnatural about you, to be quite frank. But here's how, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, there's 3 steps, by the way, shamelessly stolen straight from Tony Robbins. Love the man. It's a 3-step process. If you come to one of our live events, like in Cancun, I pretty much open every seminar I've ever done with just this, or, large scale seminar. 3 words, and I'd encourage you to write these down, put it in your notes in your phone, commit these to memory. State, story, strategy. Okay? So an example that I would give you is, see, if somebody wants to lose weight, right, what do? They go hit the internet, buy a book, find a report, they go find something to read up about a quote unquote, a keto diet, a strategy on how to lose weight. Okay, so they start with strategy. And then, by the way, how many people are successful with their diet? And by the way, this bit always blows me away. Like, guys, how hard do you think it is to lose weight, right? I'll give you the red hot tip. Here it is. Avoid sugar, eat less, get off your fat ass and go for a walk and then a jog and possibly a run, depending upon the shape of your hips, knees, ankles, right? Like, that's what you do. And you will lose weight with 100% certainty. You don't need to subscribe to Jenny Craig. You don't need to watch Oprah. You don't need to pay. I mean, the personal trainer, I think, will accelerate all that, but it is so unnecessary. It's scary. You do those things, and by the way, throw in pastas and breads, by the way, so avoid the carbs. Like, people think keto is like this amazing diet, which I think it's, I've done it for a short period of time, thought it was pretty cool. I found myself eating too much meat, just to, a little bit of info, but who cares? Bottom line is, it worked. Keto is about cutting out sugar. That's it. You're cutting out sugar and pasta and whites, anything white, rice, bread, pasta. You cut those out. Well, if you just cut out the sugar and the whites, you'll lose weight falling off a friggin' log. End of story. But anywho, but folks want to read up and do videos and pay people and buy books and whatnot and follow it. So in other words, what they do is they go to strategy. Of the 3 words you just wrote down, state, story, strategy, they go to strategy, right? So the question is, if the strategies are so easy, and you will assume that the book and the diet and the report that you're reading is going to be reasonably bulletproof, and so it should, because it's so easy. So then why do most people that go on a diet not succeed? Okay, we got to go to the next word, which is story, okay? What's the story that people are telling themselves? I went on the diet once and I ended up falling off of it and I gained more weight anyways, or I'm big boned, right? Or my parents were overweight, I'm overweight. It's just the way I am, right? My sister's overweight, my brother's overweight. It's a family thing. It's a generational thing, right? So if you don't correct that story, and so remember, I am, the 2 most powerful words arguably in the world, I am, and then what you say afterwards is your reality, right? So you, instead of start telling you, I am overweight, I am fat, I am out of shape, you got to fill an I am with skinny, I am fit, I am healthy, right? So it's those three words. And by the way, you need to commit to them, and you need to say those things over and over and over and over and over again, right? And magically, guess what? You'll get there. But the bottom line is you've got to replace that story that you've been telling yourself over X amount of time that got you into that situation, okay? Again, a lot of the time, though, folks don't have success. So where's the real magic? And it's in the next word, which is state. When you get committed, when you get pissed, when you get angry, when you get determined, you can accomplish anything. Sure as shit losing 10 pounds. That's like falling off a log stuff. I mean, people build multi-billion-dollar companies with a little bit of determination. So really what you got to do, guys, and if you think about it, it's like strategy. Look, state is 95% of the equation. Story is 4% of the equation. And then strategy is 1% of the equation, but the 1% drives the other 99. Okay, so I am not in any way suggesting that you don't have a good strategy. You need a kick-ass, you need a strategy that works. But you've got to get yourself into a determined state of mind to say, that's it, enough's enough, joke's over, line in the sand, I'm such an idiot, how could I get into this position, right? So you've got to manage your state, okay? So if you want to lose weight, your state will dictate whether or not you lose the weight, okay? And I'm pretty sure you guys all know what I'm talking about, because you think about, like, when you think about going to the gym, when you think about lifting some weights, if you think about jumping on the rowing machine, you think about getting on the treadmill, if your state comes down, and especially every time you think about it, I mean, the chances of you following through, it needs to be the opposite. You got to get excited about it. One of the things that I do, like yesterday, rollerblading is something that I like to do, right? So I was literally yesterday, I listened to a song. I went rollerblading for, I don't know how long, but it was probably 2 hours. And I listened to audios the entire time, right? In fact, I tell you, one of the things that's when I Google, I went to YouTube and I Googled how to build $1 billion business. And then I just sat there, I went through all of the videos. Some were horrific, some were awesome, but I was just wondering who's out there. Instead of talking about building $1 million business, I thought, who's got brass balls enough to say build $1 billion business? And I listened to a bunch of audios, and I learned some good stuff. And again, I learned some stuff that I think is hogwash, but it was interesting, and that's what I did for a couple of hours while I was rollerblading, right? So and personally, this is something that I like to do. So that's just made a lot of sense. And and going to YouTube is all I needed to do to fulfill on that. The bottom line, though, guys, that keeps me in a state, because if I just go rollerblading, I just go jogging, and all I'm thinking about is jogging and rollerblading and left to my own thoughts, I get bored pretty quickly, right? I'd love to learn. I'm a voracious reader. So, and I can't be I'm obviously not going to be able to rollerblade and then read a book, which could be a little bit dangerous, by the way. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing. But the bottom line, state, story, strategy. If you want to lose weight, forget it. If you want to build a thriving 7-figure kick-butt business coaching company, it's state that's going to decide it, right? Like, again, think of my realtor example. When I go to work with a realtor, I mean, the state that I'm in is I'm trying to close this person. In the back of your mind, in your subconscious mind, if you're thinking, gosh, can I really help this guy? And if you're honest with yourself, I know that is a challenge that a lot of coaches face. Like, do they really know how to help this person past the 90-day point? Well, the way that you overcome that is to go do some legitimate homework. You go rollerblading, you go jogging, and you listen to the videos on how to market a restaurant, how to market a personal training business, how to market a plumbing company. Go watch some videos. And again, you hear some great stuff and you hear some hogwash. Take notes, learn this stuff, commit it to memory, and now go find a plumber and sell it to them, right? And the way, and you guys will hear me say this a lot, but the way that you sell coaching is I want you to think that this person has cancer, you've got the cure to cancer, okay? And you love this person. This is somebody, this is somebody in your family, okay? And believe me, there are people with cancer, and then there is a solution to cancer, and they are not following through on it. This happens all the time. So think about the number of ways that you would try to influence this person to take on your pill, right? You would try to be funny. You would try to be determined. you would try to be like, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't just try one approach and then give in. It's the same, my daughter's 5 years old. There's days when she just doesn't want to brush her teeth. Some days I got to be playful. Some days I got to be demanding. Times I got to turn into a little competition who can brush their teeth the fastest. At the end of the day, it's a non-negotiable. She's brushing her teeth. It's a matter of how we go about getting her brushing the teeth, right? So anywho, that's a state. It's a level. It's like I know the outcome that I'm looking for, and she's going to be brushing her teeth. Like that's it. It's conversation over. And it's the same when I sit with a coaching client. The determination, like I'm significantly more committed than they are, right? I'm more committed to yes than they are committed to no. I almost guarantee it. And why? Because I know that I can genuinely help them. I know who's doing who the favor by them saying yes. So yeah, so
okay, just to add on to that, Karl. So let me throw this at you, because you've talked about this quite a bit. You talk about state, and I think there's some value here in also discussing what's the state that your prospect is in. Like you've talked about, the last thing that you want when you're doing a presentation is a standing ovation, right?
Yeah, you want them perfect live event would have your entire audience with their hands in their head, crying into their hands, right? Looking down at the table. This would be a perfect presentation. And then why? Because you want them to be disrupted. Like the number of coaching clients that I have had on the phone who start crying through the process. And it's not because what I'm doing is I'm just opening up wounds, and I'm sitting there and I'm going through things that they should have been doing, that they could have been doing. And it's like they're thinking it's like somebody trying to lose weight. They're sitting like when someone is like 300 pounds and gets down to 180, yes, there's some joy in the 180, but there's more pissed offedness at the number of years they spent at 300 and the amount of time they missed with their kids and running around and the soccer games that they could have been enjoying and playing and picking up their daughter and throwing her around, right? It's weird, but this is the way it is. So yeah, perfect. I got a presentation. You're there to disrupt. And this is why I've got a saying, if you can coach, you can't sell, and if you can sell, you can't coach. The reason why the great coaches suck at selling is because they're too kumbaya, right? It's going to be great. I can't wait to get started. Road Dog, we're going to make so much money. Can you imagine how amazing it's going to be? Well, it's easier to influence somebody through pain than it is through pleasure, right? So this is so, and again, and by the way, building a business, it's complicated, but it's just not that stinking hard, right? And it's like another thing, again, the guy phones about Facebook advertising, and then I was talking to an accountant earlier today, Gary Johnson, a really high-end accountant, and he does speaking, speaks to thousands of people a year in and around the Texas area at universities, and the University of Houston sponsored and whatnot. Cut a long story short, I was just chatting to him about that, and it's like these people will start their business, okay, and just a hair salon, whatever it might be, and then they get the phone call from the guy about Facebook advertising, and they take it on. It's like, how could you be that crazy, right? Like, Facebook advertising, is that what you seriously think you should be doing? And in some cases, you should. But for goodness sake, maybe let's go through our credit card statements before we cut more hair and take on more staff and build a quote-unquote funnel. Why don't we go through our credit card statements and make sure that we're not smoking $25,000 a year? How about we sit down with our accountant, look at our tax bill, and say, what can I do? Don't. It's too late when the year is over. You have to do this at the beginning of the year, not the end of the year. Sit down with your accountant and say, okay, I spent, income tax last year was X, call it 40 grand. How do we reduce this? Ask your accountant that question. And by the way, he doesn't give you the right answer, and he doesn't get a little bit creative and start helping you. You should either demand creativity, and everything is above board, but believe me, you can get a little bit creative with your accounting, things like I said earlier with the employee of the month, and, save yourself a ton of money. So, that's a better place to start than Facebook ads. But what does everybody buy, Road Dog? They buy the Facebook ads. It drives me crazy. This is why people commit suicide and marriages end and kids end up with stepmom and stepdad because they fall for it. And why do they fall for it? Because they're looking for the secret bloody sauce. When I explain this is why she cries, right? This is why the guy takes his fist and hammers it down to the table and goes, I'm such an idiot. So yes, when I do a presentation, my goal is to disrupt, right? My goal is not to get a standing ovation. When somebody stands up and gives me a standing ovation, think of what's happening. They're literally waving air towards me. I'm good. I want them to leave and actually bloody do something. And as coaches, that's the bane of your existence, is that I hear this all the time, my clients don't do anything. Well, this is why. You're not going far enough into the pain, right?
Well, the crazy part is, Karl, too, that I think that we like to make things more complicated. You talk about the ads and the funnels and all that stuff. We like to make things more complicated. And as one of my coaches, not named Karl Bryan, said, he's just like, why do you want something more complicated? So you have another excuse to not do it and not move forward? Like, the basics are here. This is what we do. And I think people are going to be more pissed off when they realize this is actually quite simple. And oh my God, I'm such an idiot that I couldn't actually implement these basics.
It's, again, just that's how you disrupt. Like, you're right. And it's like, oh my goodness, right? Because everybody, again, it's like advanced techniques. When the professional hockey player falls into the slump and he's a goal scorer, they don't say, look, man, you know how you've been scoring top hand corner for the last 10 seasons? We think you should start going low glove hand. Like, that's not what you say. You go back to the basics, right? You watch videos from the past when he was scoring goals hand over fist, watches those over and over again to get him back into that place, right? Like, spring training for baseball, you got guys out there making $30 million a year, and what are they doing? They're fielding grounders. They're in the outfield taking pop-ups and catching them and throw them into second base. Like, this is what you do. There's no rocket science going on here. So it's the same for the business owner. I love when I work with a or a small business owner, go to what's working and accelerate it. Don't go to something totally new straight away. In some cases, you go to something new because they're missing a magic piece, but start with what they're doing and they're doing well and accelerate that. So much easier, so much more profitable. Because remember, in the first 90 days, you want them to see a tangible financial return as a result of working with you.
The crazy part is, though, it's just not sexy, right? Obviously, oh, Karl, you're going to do this funnel, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They're looking for a silver bullet, right? They're looking for someone to be the savior. And as I always like to say, look, I can't walk on water. That's been done once before, and I'm not that guy. But it's all pretty simple stuff. And I think that's the point. But anyways, we're getting to the top of the hour here, and kind of respecting of everyone's time. There's a couple questions that have come in. I think what we'll do is we'll reach out to those people kind of directly is what we'll do, or we'll bring it up on next week's call.
Yeah, we'll bring it.
But
just bring those forward for next week, for sure.
Yeah, but again, want to be respectful of everyone's time coming up here. So any sort of parting shots, parting words here that you'd like to give to everybody as we wrap up?
Just execution. Again, we've all been on, like, both the coach and the coachee, and it's if you want to lose weight, cut out the sugar, get off your chair, go for a walk, accelerate your walking pace over time. If you get out of your chair and you're 40 pounds out of shape and you go for a run, guess what? You're going to pull a muscle and you're toast, right? Like, that's the problem. Like, right now I got a hockey tournament in Italy, and I'm in a little bit of training right now. The number one thing, I'm 47 years old, right? And by the way, I've, haven't managed my fitness as well as ideal. It's not like I'm, brutally out of shape, but I'm not in great shape. The number one thing that I need to manage, because I'm strategic over tactical, is I've got to manage myself from an injury. If I get an injury, tournament's in 7 weeks in Italy, I'm screwed, right? So right now, it's why I'm there rollerblading for 2 hours yesterday, but not at a feverish pace yet. But I tell you, a week before Italy, my pace is going to be significantly more than it is now. But I have to manage against injury. So what am I getting at? Execution. So for you guys, business coaches, look, you need to, depending upon where you're at with the cycle, some of you are starting, some of you are a few years into it, and some of you have been doing it longer than I, right? So, with that, your strategy is going to adjust, but get out of your own way. Some of my emails, if you guys imagine if you're on this, you get my magazine, The Six-Figure Coach, you'll see my emails, guys. Marriages are breaking up left, right, and center. Suicides are happening dads and moms are lying in bed in the fetal position as a result of lack of money. That's why marriages break up from lack of money 100 times as much as they do from lack of love. We save families. We save lives as business coaches. So get out of your own way and go help somebody today. No expectation. In fact, I'm writing an email that's going to be coming out to you guys soon through the magazine, but it's all about that. You've got to deliver first. You guys don't have, like, people tell me they have a number of clients problem and a money problem, and my email is going to state that you don't have either of those. You have a refusal to help people first problem, okay? Because if you help people, believe me, if you pick up the phone today and help 3 business owners, I'm just giving you the email, okay? Pick up the phone and speak to 3 business owners every single day. And I don't want to hear you slept in, the guy told you to buzz off yesterday, your kid's got a cold, you've got a cold. I don't care, okay? 3 people today, you're going to help them, okay? Much like the realtor, but legitimate strategies. If you just phone and deliver the tax advice that I gave you here today, okay, that's going to help, okay? Because believe me, they're spending way too much in tax, and enlightening them on that being the number one expense in their life when they would have thought it was mortgage and go, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And by the way, their wife is again selling lingerie in the kitchen, to make some extra money. That's a poor, a poor strategy on average if they haven't sat down with their accountant yet. So, learn this stuff and just go and deliver it every day to 3 people. I promise you, at the end of 90 days, you are going to have more coaching. I don't care how bad you are at selling. Some of these people are just going to want your help, and they're going to refer you to other people to help. Why? It doesn't matter. It's called the rule of reciprocity. Just believe in it the same way that I am not an electrician. In fact, I can hardly hang a picture, right? So like I am not a technical person or like a handyman of any way, shape, or form. But I walk into my office, I hit the light switch, and the light turns on. I don't know how it works. Frankly, I don't care how it works. I just want there to be light, okay? If you pick up the phone and you help 3 people today and tomorrow and then the next day, every day for the next 90 days, you will have more coaching clients. No expectation, no hard close at the end. You're going to phone your Mother Teresa. You're going to phone and help people. You are going to be a very popular person in 90 days. You are going to feel amazing about yourself. Your level of happiness is going to go through the roof. You won't recognize your level of self-esteem and self-satisfaction when you sit there in your own thoughts in your own mind. And you will have coaching clients you will not be able to keep up. Like that will be your new problem. And that's what I want for you. But so many folks, so what did I just say? Remember, you don't have a money problem. You don't have a coaching client problem. You have a refusal to help people before you get paid problem. Okay? And again, you're about to get it in an email. Okay? So anyway, so that's what I would say, Road Dog, in closing, bud. Great questions. Appreciate it. And
love it. Let's all go out and make 3 calls today. That's it.
That's it. It's that easy. And start with 1, by the way. And then 2 more, hopefully. But when you do 3, guess what's going to happen? It's like going for a 5-minute walk.
Momentum.
You're not going to be after 3. You're going to feel so good. Progress equals happiness. You're going to feel amazing. Okay.
In the words of Tupac Shakur, bud. In the words of Tupac Shakur, picture me rolling. Let's just start with 3, and then it'll just keep on going.
So anyway, so that's the way to end this sucker. Good job, Road Dog. Appreciate you, bud, and everybody here. We appreciate you listening to Business Coaching Secrets.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra $1 on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.